It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations, we cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome to the show. There's been a whole bunch of tournament fishing going on the FLW and bass circuit over the last couple of weeks, and we'll share some of that with you right now. We're starting with the Bass Southern Open, held last weekend on Chickamauga Lake near Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we learned that John Cox, reputedly one of the most laid-back anglers on the bass circuit, finally got a first-place finish after a dozen years of trying. Cox, who hails from DeBary, Florida, locked up a berth in the 2018 Geico Bassmaster Classic with a victory. He also won more than $8,000 in cash, as well as a Triton bass boat equipped with a Mercury 200 Pro motor, worth a total of $40,000. What did it take to win? For Cox, the answer was a 3-day total of 68 pounds and 3 ounces of bass. Heading west, we can report Nick Wood took the individual title in the Bass Nation Regional on Shasta Lake in Northern California. Eureka, California angler Nick Wood, who has also appeared as a guest on this show, led the Bass Nation Western Regional from start to finish and earned a purse of $5,000. A day after Wood helped the California Bass Nation team claim a victory there, he earned the individual title for himself in his 3-day total, 37 pounds, 1 ounce. Shasta Lake was also where a college fishing tournament, sponsored by Bass Pro Shops, took place this month. The winning team hailed from Chico State. Team members Tyler Firebaugh and Chad Schweitzer not only won the 3-day tournament with a bag weighing over 36 pounds, but they also caught a 9-pound, 10-ounce spotted bass out of Shasta Lake that was only 1 pound away from the world record. Wow! You know that had to help. The Chico State team and the second-place finisher, Jacob Wall from the University of Oregon, have earned themselves a berth in the College Series National Championship taking place later this summer. Moving on to the next hour, we'll be chatting with another young man who not only flirted with a record, but broke it 2 times in 1 day. Where? In the windy city of Chicago, fishing right off the bank of Lake Michigan. You are going to love this story. After we talk fishing, we're going to check and see how our new president and interior secretary are doing on the conservation front for us hunters, anglers, and outdoors enthusiasts. Both Secretary Zinke and President Trump fashioned themselves to be modern-day Theodore Roosevelts, a president known for his conservation work in America, who actually has a conservation organization named after him. That's why we figured Whit Fosbergh, the CEO of the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, would be the perfect person to assess how these two have done during their first 100 days of the new administration, living up to their role model. From Washington, D.C., we'll take you to northern New Mexico. That's where you'll find the NRA Whittington Center, an expansive place where you can shoot, train, and even go on guided hunts for big game. And yes, it's open to the public. Wayne Armacost, the executive director, will tell you more about that. We've got outdoors news about a mountain lion that snatched a pet dog right off of its owner's bed, and a river being closed for everyone to fishing because a few bad actors just couldn't stop themselves from illegally taking fish from it. And yes, these poachers are being featured on our Trail of Shame this week. We'll finish things off on a happier note, though, when we talk to Randy King. He's the chef in the wild. He writes a monthly column for Northwest Sportsman magazine. He hails from Boise, Idaho, and he's got some great advice on prepping and cooking that wild turkey you are going to harvest this spring. But before we talk turkey, let's talk about a record-breaking day on the water. Next on America Outdoors Radio, we're taking you to the Windy City. That's right, Chicago. That's where we are meeting with Ken Majori. He's 19 years old, but he has accomplished something that nobody I know of has accomplished in a lifetime. He caught not 1, but 2 Illinois record fish in the space of 30 minutes out of Lake Michigan. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey.
So, Ken, this all took place March 22nd. You're fishing from shore on Lake Michigan. I understand you go there, 4 or 5 times a week this time of year?
Yes, I do. I try and get out as much as I can just because it's what I love to do, and there's nothing better to do than hang out with friends and catch some fish.
Ken, you're my type of person. I agree with you 100%. Now, what were you targeting that day? What were you and your friends after?
Well, we were originally targeting coho salmon on a power line, which is basically a trot line that is shot out with a fire extinguisher, a weight, and a rubber band. It's only legal in Illinois. And then we had bottom rods out with shrimp, trying to catch Lakers, browns, whitefish, a little bit of everything.
And is the fishing pretty good this time of year? I mean, how big are those coho salmon, and how many can you catch on a good day?
The sizes range. We get them from a pound all the way up to 4 to maybe 5 pounds if you're lucky. But on a good day, you can get your limit, which is 5. On a slow day, you can maybe get 1 or 2.
That's still not a bad day of fishing to me. Sounds like a lot of fun. Now, I understand on this particular day, again, March 22nd, things started off a little slow for you until you saw that telltale tap, tap, tap on your rod around 11 a.m. What happened next?
Yeah, what happened is I saw the tap on my rod. I took the bell off because I always put a bell on so that way I can hear the fish. I pick it up and I just start reeling in the slack line after I fed them out some line. And then I just get this all of a sudden huge whack on it. So I set the hook. Next thing you know, I'm reeling it up and I see this brown flash. It looks like maybe a carp, something. Didn't know what it was. We get it up to the wall. My buddy Tommy, he got the net right there, and my buddy Nick holding him because it was super icy and stuff.
Right.
And he nets it, and we get it up in the thing, and we're all like freaking out because we all know what it was. It was an eel pout. It was huge, biggest one anybody's ever seen.
As a matter of fact, it was a 9.3-pound eel pout, also known as burbot or freshwater ling in other parts of the country. So did you have any idea at the time that was a state record fish?
No, we had no idea, but I called my boss who works at Fish Tech. It's where I work. I work at a fishing store. So I called him up and had him look up the record, and he told me it was like 8.13 pounds. And I'm like, we weighed ours, and I'm like, it's well over 9.
Wow. So you had an idea you had a record after you talked to your boss, but I understand you didn't go to a tackle shop to get it weighed in right away. You kept fishing. What happens next?
Yeah, I just kept fishing, put my rod back out with the same piece of bait, and kept fishing away, and half hour later, my rod starts bouncing again. And this rod bounce was a whitefish rod bounce. It's the way we can tell is it's a soft bite.
Sure.
Because basically they got the same mouth of a carp, and then slowly feed them line, reel up and slack, and then just set the hook. And next thing you know, we're reeling up a monster whitefish, biggest one anybody's ever seen.
And this one, 7.5 pounds, that beat the previous record of 6.55 pounds. Now, did you catch this one on that rod with the shrimp on it?
Yeah, the same rod, same bait, same everything.
Wow. At this point, I understand you went to Henry's, a local bait shop.
Yeah, we went to Henry's because they're the only place around that has a certified scale.
And obviously somebody from the state has to come along and see the fish and make sure that they weigh out. When did that happen?
That happened 2 days later. We weighed the fish up right away, got certified weight, and then I left my fish there for 2 days, and then the state biologist came over and certified the fish, and then I went in, picked my fish up, and then signed all the paperwork, sent it out. It's good to go.
2 state records in 30 minutes for burbot and for whitefish. An amazing feat by Ken Majori out of Chicago, Illinois. Last question. What are you doing with these fish?
Me, I am getting them mounted right now. I'm going to do a specialty mount where I get a replica of the eel pout because it's like a catfish and it's hard to skin out.
Sure.
The whitefish will be the actual skin mount, and then I'm going to put them both on the same mount with all the articles I've gotten, and then the plaques from the state.
Well, Ken, definitely the feat of a lifetime. Congratulations to you, and I can't wait to hear some more fishing stories in the future. You're only 19. I suspect we're going to have you on the air again. Congrats again, and thanks for taking the time to tell us your story on America Outdoors Radio.
I appreciate it.
Offshore Northwest is Washington's most exciting albacore tuna fishing charter, offering one-day run-and-gun live bait tuna fishing trips from Westport, Washington. You'll leave at first light, run an hour and a half out to the tuna grounds, and catch these fish till your arms fall off. They'll have you back to port by 5 p.m. on their 30-foot Parker boat. The tuna are coming, and this summer is looking strong, so book now by calling Captain Carey at 253-380-9973. That's 253-380-9973.
Homer Ocean Charters, offering premium halibut and salmon fishing since 1979 in Homer, Alaska. We also offer kayaking, hiking, remote cabin rentals, and water taxi service to all destinations in Kachemak Bay State Park. Call 907-235-6212 for reservations. That's 907-235-6212. Again, that's 907-235-6212 for Homer Ocean Charters.
The Deadfoot Arms Modified Cycle System with folding stock adapter is the only drop-in sight folder for the AR-15 rifle that allows for full weapons function with the stock folded or deployed. 100% combat veteran-owned and operated, all products made in the USA. Contact Deadfoot Arms at 608-764-3176, 608-764-3176, or log on to deadfootarms.com to upgrade your rifle today. That's deadfootarms.com.
Hughes Craft is the Pacific Northwest best-selling boat. It's a family fishing boat that has been providing the most safety, fishability, and the best value to Northwest boaters since 1948. Hughes Craft's welded aluminum boats are built for serious fishermen with plenty of room for fighting fish, not the rest of the crew. Our state-of-the-art design allows for pure fishing functionality and the durability to last season after season, year after year, and decade after decade. To find the Hughes Craft dealer nearest you, visit hughescraft.com. You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We've got a real special guest for you today. His name is Whit Fosbergh. He is the CEO of the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. He's based in Washington, D.C. This organization lobbies for you and me and sportsmen across America to maintain our public lands and our access to them. Whit, welcome to the show.
John, it's great to be with you.
So, Whit, I wanted to have you on the show today to talk about how a couple people in the new administration are doing. One of them is Secretary Zinke, who hails from Montana. The other one is President Donald Trump. Both of them, well, they idolize, for lack of a better word, Theodore Roosevelt and the conservation ethic that he promoted while he was president. So I thought we'd start off, since you are the CEO of the TRCP, by educating our listeners with a little history about exactly what Teddy Roosevelt did do for our country when it comes to conservation.
Well, John, I think, as you well know, most people consider Roosevelt to be the father of conservation in America. And it didn't just start when he was president. When he was just growing up, he was a sickly kid living in Long Island, had to sort of, work his way into manhood, had a tragic, death of his wife. And all those times, he went into the wild of Maine, to the Adirondacks, eventually North Dakota after his wife died, and that's where he really found himself as a person. And he credited the ability to be in the outdoors and making him the vigorous, person he became. And he wanted to make sure that all Americans got that opportunity to get outside and to experience what he has experienced. He didn't want it to be just something for the elite, and he came from a wealthy family, so it could have been. But he wanted it to be something for every American, regardless of their class, wealth, business type, skin color, anything, could get outside and experience what he had experienced. So when he founded the Boone and Crockett Club back in the 1880s, and with some other buddies of his from that New York area. And really what that was an effort to the first real conservation group to mobilize and at that time to really stop the market hunting, which was decimating wildlife species around the country. I mean, think about the turn of the century back then, white-tailed deer were rare. Black bear had basically been extirpated. Elk were at, a fraction of what we have today. Bison were, for all intents and purposes, extinct at that point. And he recognized, unless people who cared got together and organized, we were going to lose something that was incredibly important. And then when he became president, during his tenure, he set aside about 240 million acres of what are now our public lands network, national forests, national wildlife refuges, as places to protect fish and wildlife, but also give folks a chance to get out and hunt and fish and just hike and experience the outdoors and make sure that was around for generations to come.
That was a great synopsis of what President Roosevelt did. So let's fast forward to about 115 years later. We have President Donald Trump, and we have Secretary Ryan Zinke, who's in charge of the Department of the Interior. And it's almost akin. I got to read a great book by Timothy Egan called The Big Burn. And I got to read about how Roosevelt and Gifford Pinchot, the head of the very young U.S. Forest Service, they would spend all this time collaborating on what they were going to do for America's public lands. And I almost see Ryan Zinke and President Trump wanting to do the same thing. How is Secretary Zinke, who literally rode in on a horse into the Capitol, how's he doing so far during our first 100 days?
I think it's too early to tell. I think that, has not been a single other person appointed over the Department of the Interior. There are 19, I think, political appointments over there, including assistant secretaries, director of the Fish and Wildlife Service, director of Bureau of Land Management. Not a single one has not only been approved by the Senate, has not even been nominated yet. So he is over there with, for lack of a better term, a bunch of kids that ran in the Trump campaign who don't know really anything about conservation, and then a bunch of career bureaucrats who know a ton about conservation, but who he doesn't trust yet. And, so I think we're in a holding pattern over there, until he can get his team in place and we can, start doing some stuff. Now, there have been mixed signals early on. I mean, one of the first things he did, the first day he was in office, he had a signing ceremony and invited the sportsman's community in. So we were his first official meeting, which I think says a lot about his orientation. And at that time, one of the executive orders he signed was directing all of his departments to go out and look at access on public lands and how that could be improved. And as you know, that's a huge deal for sportsmen. It's tougher and tougher to get access even to our public lands. Think about the way the land patterns, especially in the West, are situated. We have private lands down the valleys, then up in the mountains you have national forests or BLM lands. In the old days, you could knock on anybody's door, cross those lands, get to the public lands. You can't do that anymore. So large tracts of public lands that belong to you and me are, for all intents and purposes, off limits now because ownership patterns have changed. And so I think there is a lot of things you can do if you go out and systematically look and try to find ways to improve access, and we're pleased he's doing that. At the same time, he's also directed the agencies to get rid of, quote, any impediment to oil and gas development on public lands. And we remember back in the early 2000s when basically fish and wildlife were considered impediments. And, so they put in, drilling pads and pipelines and roads everywhere, regardless of whether it was sensitive mule deer habitat or across a wetland or, whatever it might have been. And we don't want to go back to that same time. We think you can have it all. You can get oil and gas out. You can have solar arrays. You can have wind turbines. But where you put them is important. How you do it's important. And basically, you can't look at fish and wildlife as an impediment to that and hunting and fishing as an impediment to that.
All right. Well, very well said. And you're right. It's still early in the game. And I guess that probably foreshadows what you're going to tell me next when I ask you about President Trump and how he's doing on the conservation front. Would Teddy be smiling as he looks down from heaven on him right now or not?
Teddy would not be smiling right now. This happened, out of the White House, has pretty much been, negative in terms of conservation long term. In the budget that was proposed by President Trump, conservation programs get hammered. I mean, the Department of the Interior is going to have across-the-board 12% cut, which will actually be a lot worse on certain agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Service. EPA is going to get a 31% cut in the president's budget. Now, you can not like the EPA, but you start cutting 31% of its budget, and you're going to have dirtier water, you're going to have worse air, you're going to have less enforcement, you're going to have more toxic spills, and things we can't afford. I mean, look at things like the Great Lakes program is being proposed for complete elimination. Chesapeake Bay program, eliminated. And these are programs that have done great things in terms of cleaning up the Great Lakes and cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay and making it much better for hunting and fishing. And, so I'm a little more concerned with what we're seeing coming out of the White House, and I'm hoping that once, Secretary Zinke gets his team in place, then the adults in the room can start really thinking about real conservation and not sort of political messaging.
All right. Well, again, it's still early in the game, and if you don't mind, Whit, we're going to check back in with you in a few months to see how things are going with both of these men who, again, they claim that they idolize Teddy Roosevelt and all that he stood for in terms of conservation. We'll see how well they're living up to that role model. Before we go, let's give out a website for the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership so folks can find out more about what your organization is doing.
John, the website is www.trcp.org, and we encourage folks to check it out. Sign up as a supporter of ours, like us on Facebook, and let us know what you think. And any of your listeners who are making it to Washington, D.C., come on by the office, and we'd love to have you.
That is a great invitation, one that I might have to take you up on, too, one of these days. Whit, thanks for making the time to tell us about this on America Outdoors Radio.
John, my pleasure. Thank you.
Skinner Sights is your source for accurate, durable, and beautiful peep sights for your rifles. These rugged sights have been developed during a lifetime of hunting and shooting in the outdoors. Our sights are handcrafted in Montana and sold for an affordable price. If you need a solid sighting system or innovative gun cases to carry your firearms, please visit us at skinnersights.com. That's skinnersights.com, from the company that aims to please.
It started in 1971 with the adjustable fishing float. Since then, XX Tackle has grown into one of the premier American manufacturers of fishing tackle. The core values of the family-owned company have never changed. Make the best fishing tackle possible at the best price, and make it in the United States. Available at quality tackle dealers or online at xtackle.com, where X marks the spot for quality and X marks the spot for value. xtackle.com.
You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. This segment is sponsored by the American Shooting Journal. It is the monthly publication covering the firearm scene and the shooting sports throughout North America. Look for it on a newsstand near you. Next up, we are heading towards New Mexico, specifically north central New Mexico, just below the border of Colorado. If you go there, you might hear the sound of gunfire, and if you do, it's probably coming from the NRA Whittington Center. With us here to tell you more about what's being offered by the National Rifle Association there is Wayne Armacost, the executive director of the NRA Whittington Center. Wayne, welcome to the show.
Good day, John. How are you?
I am doing great. Why don't you give our listeners a brief overview of what's offered there?
Well, the Whittington Center is one of the most unique places in all of the United States. We are a 33,300-acre outdoor recreation paradise, if you will. The shooting sports and outdoor recreation are the cornerstones of what the Whittington Center is about. We host over 250 organized events each year. The vast majority of them are shooting-related, but we do everything from sales meetings to weddings to art conventions to training, you name it. We're hosting that at the Whittington Center along with competitive shooting, and then, of course, lots and lots of people come out to do recreational shooting as well. One of the newest features that we have at the Whittington Center was established in 2008 is the Frank Brownell Museum of the Southwest, which is a firearms museum that displays everything from firearms related to the conquistadors and the history of the Southwest to the furthest west battle that was fought during the Civil War in Glorieta, New Mexico, along with modern firearms used in sporting and historical firearms, along with finely engraved firearms, all kinds of interesting things related around the history of the gun in the West.
Well, I'll tell you what, as both a history junkie and a shooting junkie, you've definitely piqued my interest, and you're already making me want to go visit you at the NRA Whittington Center. Let's talk about the ranges and shooting opportunities available there. I understand that you've got ranges for just about anything you want to do out there.
That's absolutely correct. We have 18 developed ranges at the Whittington Center, everything from silhouette ranges to a 1,000-yard range. We have a black powder range. We have ranges for police. And we also have our Whittington U ranges, which are Whittington U is our training academy, where we teach pistol, carbine, shotgun classes, along with precision long range and extreme long range as well.
And I want to talk more about that. These training courses offered through Whittington U, are they offered to the general public?
Absolutely. The Whittington Center is open to the general public. We are associated with the NRA, but we are not funded or managed by the NRA. So while their name is in front of ours, that does not make us a members-only exclusive facility. We are open to the public, whether you're an NRA member or Whittington Center member or not. And that is the same with our Whittington U training classes, open to the public. We encourage new shooters, seasoned shooters, whoever you might be, to look at the courses that we have available and to come enjoy some shooting in the Southwest Rockies.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. So let's dive into this a little bit deeper. When it comes to the new shooter courses, what are some of the more popular ones that you offer there?
Well, by far, it's going to be our practical pistol and our precision long-range classes are the two most popular courses that we offer. And the Whittington U is set up on an academic base. So no matter what level that you are, you're going to come in on what we consider our level 1 and graduate through level 2 and level 3 before you then go on to our master's courses. And the reason being is that our pistol courses are all defensive courses. They're all related to self-defense and living in a real world and shooting in a 360-degree environment. And so there's techniques, there's verbiage, there's things that we teach that we want everybody to start at that first level. And no matter who you are, we've had a lot of people that advanced, shooters, taking a lot of courses. They're really amazed at what they've learned on a level 1 course before they then go to levels 2 and 3. And the same is true with our precision long-range class. It's highly technical. Precision long-range shooting isn't just setting up a target at a far distance and laying down and plinking at it. It's highly scientific. There's a lot that goes into it. And so because of that, we start in the classroom. We get to really know our firearm, our ammunition, how we judge the wind, and then getting your dope, as you've heard it called, for your particular firearm. And then we go out to the range in a real-world environment, not a square range. It's up in our back country, and put yourself to the test.
Fascinating stuff and fascinating way of doing business as well. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, to go ahead and get across your training method, starting with baby steps and moving up to advanced steps, it does make perfect sense. So that's great to hear there. Let's talk about something else here. And you didn't mention this earlier, but looking on your website, I noticed that when it comes to outdoor recreation, not only do you host RV conventions, it looks like there's actually self-guided and guided hunting available at the Whittington Center.
That's right. We do hunts at the Whittington Center, and in fact, just recently, we did move to all guided hunts. We hunt elk, mule deer, pronghorn, black bear, mountain lion, and Merriam turkey. Those are the species that we hunt at the Whittington Center. We have quite a long waiting list for most all species, but very challenging hunts, very rewarding. It's all fair chase. It's not a canned hunt by any means. Our property ranges in elevation from 6,500 feet up to 8,100 feet. Some of the terrain can be very challenging, but at the end of the day, it's very rewarding when you score that trophy animal.
As you talk about the lack of self-guided hunts, I was thinking to myself as you said that kind of makes sense. Probably the worst thing in the world you want to have happen is to have some self-guided hunter wander onto the long-range precision shooting range or some other range where they're not supposed to be. With the guided hunt, you don't have to worry about that, do you?
No, you certainly don't. And the other thing, too, is that we have minimums and standards that we want when it comes to harvesting mature animals. And there's a lot of people that have never hunted big game before, and so just to send them out on their own can be setting them up for failure, and that's not what we want when people are coming out making an effort to hunt the West. So
here's another question for you. When it comes to these guided hunts, is the guide basically a concessionaire similar to what the National Park Service has, or is this tied in? Is it an integral part of the NRA Whittington Center, just part of the experience there?
Well, all of our guides are staff members, and when you book a guided hunt at the Whittington Center, you're getting world-class treatment. We'll take elk, for example. The state of New Mexico allows you 5 days to hunt a bull elk on private property. So for those 5 days, You've got lodging. Meals are cooked for you right there in your cabin. Your guide will pick you up in the morning, take you out in the field. We'll have lunch out in the field, and he's with you the entire time. Once you harvest that animal, he's processing it, field processing it for you, caping it out, getting it ready for the taxidermist. We've got a great big walk-in cooler that will then bring your meat back, hang it, let it cool until it's time to take it to the processor. So it's really a first-class experience.
Last but not least, for the casual shooter who wants to plan maybe a 1 or 2 day trip to the NRA Whittington Center, can they just purchase a day membership and go out to the range and do some shooting? Is it that simple or not?
It is that simple. So $20 a day gets you access to the shooting ranges, with the exception of the shotgun range. We have a lot of shotgunners that like to come out and spend some time on our 5-stand or maybe on the sporting clay range. We also have trap and skeet ranges. That's you just pay per round, so you wouldn't be paying the $20 range fee. But if you want to shoot a pistol or a rifle, it's just that easy to show up. Any range that hasn't been booked for an organized event, you can get on. Our website has a Google Calendar, which is kept up to date, so you can see what ranges are available before you make the effort to come out, or give us a call. A live person will answer the phone 24 hours a day out here at the Whittington Center, and is more than happy to answer any questions you might have about range availability, housing, the RV parks that we have out here, whatever it might be.
All right, we have got to go, but as you've heard, folks, there's a lot going on near the little town of Raton, New Mexico, up by the border of Colorado. You'll find it at the NRA Whittington Center. Whether you want to go there for a day of shooting, to visit the museum, for training, or maybe for a guided hunt, the website to go to is nrawc.org. That's nrawc.org. One more time, nrawc.org for the NRA Whittington Center. Wayne, thanks for telling us all about this. Sounds like a great destination to visit.
My pleasure, John, and it is a great destination to visit.
The Deadfoot Alarms Modified Cycle System with folding stock adapter is the only drop-in side folder for the AR-15 rifle that allows for full weapons function with the stock folded or deployed. 100% combat veteran-owned and operated, all products made in the USA. Contact Deadfoot Arms at 608-764-3176, 608-764-3176, or log on to deadfootarms.com to upgrade your rifle today. That's deadfootarms.com.
Skinner Sights is your source for accurate, durable, and beautiful peep sights for your rifles. These rugged sights have been developed during a lifetime of hunting and shooting in the outdoors. Our sights are handcrafted in Montana and sold for an affordable price. If you need a solid sighting system or innovative gun cases to carry your firearms, please visit us at skinnersights.com. That's skinnersights.com, from the company that aims to please.
Hughes Craft is the Pacific Northwest best-selling boat. It's a family fishing boat that has been providing the most safety, fishability, and the best value to Northwest boaters since 1948. Hughes Craft's welded aluminum boats are built for serious fishermen with plenty of room for fighting fish, not the rest of the crew. Our state-of-the-art design allows for pure fishing functionality and the durability to last season after season, year after year, and decade after decade. To find the Hughes Craft dealer nearest you, visit hughescraft.com.
Homer Ocean Charters, offering premium halibut and salmon fishing since 1979 in Homer, Alaska. We also offer kayaking, hiking, remote cabin rentals, and water taxi service to all destinations in Kachemak Bay State Park. Call 907-235-6212 for reservations. That's 907-235-6212. Again, that's 907-235-6212 for Homer Ocean Charters.
It started in 1971 with the adjustable fishing float. Since then, XX Tackle has grown into one of the premier American manufacturers of fishing tackle. The core values of the family-owned company have never changed. Make the best fishing tackle possible at the best price, and make it in the United States. Available at quality tackle dealers or online at xxtackle.com, where X marks the spot for quality and X marks the spot for value. xxtackle.com.
Offshore Northwest is Washington's most exciting albacore tuna fishing charter, offering one-day run-and-gun live bait tuna fishing trips from Westport, Washington. You'll leave at first light, run an hour and a half out to the tuna grounds, and catch these fish till your arms fall off. They'll have you back to port by 5 p.m. on their 30-foot Parker boat. The tuna are coming, and this summer is looking strong, so book now by calling Captain Carey at 253-380-9973. That's 253-380-9973.
I'm Ward Burton. Think that's fast? That's nothing compared to how fast America is losing its wildlife habitat. Join the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and help us protect millions of acres. Visit elkfoundation.org or call 1-800-CALL-ELK.
You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz, and we've got some outdoors news for you, sponsored by California Sportsman Magazine. It is the monthly magazine that covers fishing, hunting, and more throughout the great state of California. Look for it at a newsstand near you. Speaking of California, what happens when you ban the hunting of mountain lions like the state of California did in 1990? Well, I think it would be fair to say that over time, these top-tier predators start to lose their fear of humans, and this can lead to some serious problems. A case in point occurred on April 17th in Pescadero, California, where the State Fish and Wildlife Agency reports a homeowner called 911 at 3 a.m. to report an animal had entered her home through an open door and taken her 15-pound dog, which was sleeping on the end of her bed. Local deputies responded and saw wet paw prints at the entrance to the bedroom. Later that morning, a Fish and Wildlife officer took a sample of a small amount of blood he found on a door in the residence. The officer took the blood sample to the agency's forensics lab and discovered the blood belonged to the missing dog and that there were also trace amounts of mountain lion DNA mixed in, confirming that a cougar did indeed enter the home and took the pet dog right off the bed from the sleeping resident. Now that is a bold cat and definitely not one with much fear of humans. By the way, in case you're wondering, the decision to not hunt mountain lions wasn't based on science, but instead on emotions and pushed by environmental groups through a statewide initiative. In reality, the current California cougar population is doing quite well. As a matter of fact, there are an estimated 4,000 to 6,000 mountain lions roaming the Golden State, according to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, which also reports receiving, and I'm quoting here, hundreds of reports annually of mountain lions killing pets and livestock. By the way, it's not just pets and livestock that have been attacked since this ban went into effect. Since 1991, 14 humans have been attacked by the big cats, and 3 of these victims did not survive the encounter. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when politics trumps science.
It's time for the Trail of Shame.
Shame, shame on you. Shame, shame on you.
Our Trail of Shame this week illustrates how a few bad apples ruin things for everyone. It happened this time on the Gilbert River northwest of Portland, Oregon, where the Department of Fish and Wildlife has closed the Gilbert River to sturgeon fishing year-round and to any kind of fishing at all, from the mouth to Sturgeon Lake from now through June 15th and again from October 1st to the end of the year. This permanent closure is meant to protect the sturgeon in the river, which have been incessantly targeted by poachers over the last several years, and the best efforts of state fish and wildlife officers has not been enough to lessen the loss of these slow-growing fish, which can reach over 11 feet in size during a life that can last longer than yours or mine. So, for those of you who thought it was okay to take a sturgeon, or 2, or 3 from this small river to satisfy your desire for meat or caviar, or to sell those eggs on the black market, shame on you. You have literally ruined the fishing for everyone here.
Shame on you.
All right, let's turn our attention to a happier subject. Next on America Outdoors Radio, it is spring turkey hunting season, and let's say you've downed that turkey and now you're thinking, now what? Well, we've got just the person to help you with what comes next. His name is Randy King. He is the chef in the wild. As a matter of fact, he's got a book by that name, Chef in the Wild. He hails from Boise, Idaho. He loves to hunt. He loves to cook. Randy, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here, especially talking about turkeys. It's something I'm super passionate about. It's great for the kids. It's great for the table. And I've got my bag packed right now to head up to northern Idaho on Sunday morning to go backpack in after some turkeys.
Good for you. And I hope you bag yourself a gobbler. And when you do get that gobbler, this is how confident I am in your abilities, Randy, as a hunter-gatherer here. When you bag that gobbler, what's the first thing you're going to do in the field to prep it to make sure it's going to taste great on the table?
For sure. So I actually kind of go a couple of steps. First thing you're going to do, obviously, it's a big bird. It's not like a chucker or a quail or something that you can leave the guts in and age. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and take out the insides, right? So there's just, turkeys kind of have a mono hole, right? You just go from that up to about an inch below their breastbone. And then I go in and I remove everything, and then I save the heart and the liver kind of for a camp snack. And then I just make sure that I air that out. Then what I do is I go out, and if I'm going to keep the feathers, it's one thing. If I'm not, it's another. So I go in right at basically where the elbow would be for the turkey, and I kind of just de-articulate that off and get rid of those. My dad keeps them for making arrows.
Oh.
I'll store them, throw them in the backpack. But what I'll do is I'll actually pluck most of the bird right there in the field, right away, because once you get the guts out and those feathers off, that bird will really start to cool down. And then I haul around game bags with me. So then I just put the whole bird in a game bag, usually later kind of figure out how to strap it to the outside of the pack so it's getting some airflow.
Sure.
And just haul it back and get it in the cooler as soon as I can.
All right. Fantastic tips, and tips that a lot of people probably not even considered. I think most people just continue their hunt, leave the guts in the bird, and then when they get back to the truck or even at home, that's when they think about prepping it and cleaning it. So great advice there. Let's talk about cooking that wild turkey, because it's not the same as cooking that turkey that's got a butterball tag on it, is it?
Not even close. So I always like to say that turkeys work for their money, right? They're not in some, free-range cage where they can do a circle. They're out there trying to live. So kind of just theoretically speaking, any turkey you shoot is old. Almost all of them die as chicks or, as eggs. They're eaten, something like that. So anything that's made it to the point of being shot, even the littlest Jake, is just kind of genetically a variant and something that's super aged already, and it's learned how to run and it's learned how to fly. So that's two things that those butterballs don't really do.
Right.
So I kind of make sure I distinguish between the light meat and the dark meat on the wild birds. So light meat, I like to take and, use super thin, cut it thin, or I can do roast, cure it, ham. The dark meat, you need to cook for a long, long time. So I cut off the bottom legs, and usually thigh meat goes on a smoker or goes in a crock pot for like a pulled pork sandwich or a pulled, turkey sandwich. And then the actual drumsticks I cook for hours and hours, and then I end up just pulling the meat off of when it's super tender, and then using that for soups or carnitas or something to that effect. So there's lots of different ways, but you got to make sure you understand that you're not going to just get a drumstick off a wild turkey and chew into it like you do on Thanksgiving.
Very interesting indeed. And here's another question for you. Deep fried turkey is all the rage at Thanksgiving. How's that going to work with a wild turkey?
It's not. To be quite honest with you, the best way you're going to be able to pull that off is if you take off the back legs of a wild turkey. You might be able to fry the whole keel, which is basically going to be the two breasts in the back. You might be able to get away with frying that whole and having a decent bird, but you're definitely going to want to brine it before you do that. And just a quick brine of, some salt, some orange juice, and a little bit of sugar, maybe a day or two in there. Basically, you want to break down those connective tissues in the breast, and then you want to make sure you pump it with a little bit of extra water. But deep frying a whole wild turkey like you do at Thanksgiving and thinking you're going to get the nice crispy tender legs, that ain't going to happen.
All right. We've got to go, but folks, there's some great advice from Randy King. He is the chef in the wild. He has a monthly column in our sponsors magazine, Northwest Sportsman Magazine, and you've got a book out too, Chef in the Wild. Where can folks get this book? Do we direct them to Amazon.com?
Amazon.com is going to be your best bet. If you're in the Boise area, Rediscovered Bookshop has it. some local bookshops around the Northwest will still be carrying it too.
It's Chef in the Wild. It's a great book. I've got a copy myself. It's full of not just how to cook, but it's full of some great hunting stories too. Chef in the Wild, check it out, and be sure to check out Randy's monthly column in Northwest Sportsman Magazine. Randy, thanks for the great advice on America Outdoors Radio.
Always a pleasure to chat with you.
We've got to go, but if you get a chance, go to our Facebook page. You'll find it at America Outdoors Radio. Like our page, look for the post where we've got the Leupold binoculars. We're giving that set of Rogue binoculars away as soon as we get 1,000 likes. Simply like our Facebook page, go to that post, and tell us what state you're living